My sister's husband secretly installed cameras in our house, so I sent him a live feed he'll never forget. I noticed it first in the kitchen. A tiny reflection, like an insect's eye, up near the vent. Too neat to be dust, too round to be nothing. I stood still, holding a mug of coffee. No sound in the house except the clock on the wall. I kept my eyes on that vent for a full minute. Didn't blink, didn't move, just let the details fall into place. Someone had drilled a hole. Someone had set a lens in it. A pinhole camera, cheap but effective. I didn't tell my sister right away. She was upstairs, folding laundry, humming to herself. Married 3 years. Thought she was safe. Thought she'd chosen the right man. But I knew better. Because when you grow up watching people, learning their patterns, learning the difference between a lie and the truth, you can spot a crack a mile off. And this wasn't just a crack. It was a fracture waiting to break wide open. I checked the rest of the house. Took my time. Living room, hallway, bedroom. Found 3 more. Same type, same size. Hidden well, but not well enough. By the time I circled back to the kitchen, I wasn't surprised anymore. I was angry. Not for me. For her. For what he thought he could get away with. That's when I decided he needed to see something, too. A live feed. But not the kind he expected. I waited until my sister left for work. She kissed him goodbye at the door. He kissed her back, smiling like a man with nothing to hide. She drove away, still humming, still in love. He lingered in the driveway, watching her taillights disappear. Then he went back inside, alone, thinking he was safe. I was already in the house, quiet in the corner of the living room. The cameras were his eyes, but I found their blind spots. There's always a blind spot. He sat at the table, phone in his hand, scrolled through feeds I couldn't see. His mouth curved up in a private grin, the kind that tells you everything. I didn't move, not yet. I wanted to know how far he'd gone, whether it was just watching, or more. He swiped again, tapped the screen, paused, then chuckled, low in his throat. That was enough for me. I slipped out before he noticed. Went back to my place 2 streets over. The first rule is patience. You don't confront a man like that empty-handed. You build your case. You turn his own weapons back on him. So I opened my laptop and started planning the feed he'd never forget. I started with the router. Every house has one. Sitting quiet in the corner, blinking its little green lights. To most people it's invisible. To me it's a map. A record of who's been where and when. It didn't take long. His cameras weren't professional grade. Just off-the-shelf junk he thought was clever. They all fed through the same hub. Straight to his phone. Straight to his private cloud. I wrote it down, step by step. Dates, times, file names, proof. Enough to break him wide open if I wanted. But I wasn't ready to burn it all yet. Not without showing him what it feels like. He needed pressure. He needed the mirror turned back on him. I picked one of the cameras in the bedroom. The one aimed at my sister's dresser. Obvious enough if you knew where to look. Sick enough to prove the point. I killed the feed, just for a second. Then replaced it with something of my own. A blank wall. Empty. Harmless. Then a word, written in thick black ink on a sheet of paper. I see you. I let it play for 10 seconds. Then switched it back. Seamless. He wouldn't know if it was a glitch or a ghost. But he'd know one thing for sure. He wasn't the only one watching. He noticed the change faster than I thought. I was parked down the street. Saw him through the front window. Sitting at the table again. Same phone. Same grin. Until it froze. His eyebrows pulled in. He leaned closer. Tapped the screen. Sat very still. A man who thinks he's clever only has 2 moves when he feels the ground shift under him. Deny or attack. He didn't move to attack. Not yet. He looked up, scanning the house like it might answer him. Eyes darting to corners, shadows, vents. Then he stood. Walked slow, deliberate, checking his own work. I could picture it. The panic rising behind his calm face. Every hidden camera, suddenly suspect. Every angle, a potential betrayal. He spent the next hour pacing, checking, resetting, wiping sweat from his forehead when he thought nobody was looking. But I was looking. And I wasn't done. Not even close. That night, he didn't sleep. I know because I didn't either. I was outside, engine off, watching the upstairs windows. Shadows moved past the blinds. Again and again. A restless man, circling his own cage. Around midnight, he sat on the edge of the bed, phone in his hand, staring, waiting for the next glitch. I gave it to him. Another feed, this time from the hallway camera. He expected to see empty carpet and baseboards. Instead, he saw a pair of boots. Black, heavy, standing perfectly still. My boots. 10 seconds, no more. Then the picture snapped back to normal. He dropped the phone, bent to pick it up with hands that shook. Now he knew. The house wasn't his kingdom anymore. The walls weren't his. The cameras weren't his. They were mine. And I wasn't just watching. I was inside. By morning, he was unraveling. My sister poured her coffee, kissed him on the cheek, and asked if he was feeling sick. He forced a smile, said he hadn't slept well, brushed it off, but his eyes betrayed him, darting to the vents, the corners, the dark spaces where he knew something might be watching. He left for work an hour later, or at least that's what he told her. I followed him. He drove downtown, parked in a lot, sat in the car, never went inside the office, just sat there, phone in his hand again, swiping, checking feeds, waiting for the boots to appear. Nothing happened. Not yet. After 45 minutes, he cracked, tossed the phone on the passenger seat, pounded the steering wheel once, hard enough to sting. That's how paranoia works. You squeeze, just a little at a time. You don't need force. You don't need a fight. You just let his own fear eat him alive. And by the look on his face, he'd already taken the first bite. That night, he tried to play calm, sat in the living room with a beer, television on low, like nothing was wrong. My sister sat beside him, tired from her shift, head on his shoulder. She didn't see the tension in his jaw, but I did. I let them sit, let him think maybe it was over, that maybe the boots and the message had just been tricks of the system, a bad connection, a faulty feed. Then I dropped the hammer. On his phone, the kitchen camera blinked. No sound, just the static hum of an empty room. Then a figure stepped into frame. Not me, just my hand, holding a piece of paper, written in the same black ink. She doesn't know, yet. 10 seconds, then gone. Back to normal. He nearly dropped the bottle. My sister stirred, asked what was wrong. He smiled too fast, said it was nothing, just the game on TV. But I could see the sweat bead on his forehead. He was a man cornered, sitting beside the one person he least wanted to lose. And I wasn't done reminding him of it. He started tearing the house apart. Middle of the afternoon. My sister was at work. He was alone. Thought no one could see him. But I was parked down the block again, watching. He moved room to room, dragging a chair, climbing up, yanking vents, unscrewing covers. Fast, frantic, like a man trying to erase a crime before the cops break down the door. He found 2 of his own cameras, stared at them in his hand, breathing heavy. He didn't smash them, didn't throw them out, just stood there, clutching them like a gambler holding losing cards, because he couldn't quit. Not yet. Watching was his sickness, his secret, and he couldn't let it go, no matter how much it was burning him alive. By sundown, he'd put everything back in place, but worse than before, crooked vents, wires left visible, screws half tightened, sloppy. My sister wouldn't notice, but I did, and I knew that sloppiness wasn't just in his work, it was inside him now, spreading. A man that careless? He was getting close to making the kind of mistake you can't walk away away from. Dinner was quiet, too quiet. My sister made pasta, poured him a glass of wine. She talked about her day. He nodded, once or twice, but his eyes never stayed on her. They drifted, to the corners, to the ceiling, to the shadows between words. She noticed, asked him if something was wrong. He snapped, quick, sharper than he meant. No, nothing's wrong. Why do you keep asking me that? She blinked, put her fork down. Silence stretched between them. He forced a smile then, too late. Said he was tired. Said work was piling up. Excuses stacked like cards ready to fall. I watched from the feed. Every twitch, every mistake. He didn't know it yet, but he was starting to give himself away. And not just to me. Because if there's one thing you can't hide from someone who loves you, it's fear. He came to see me the next morning. Didn't call. Didn't text. Just showed up at my door. My sister had already gone to work. He stood there on the porch, shifting from one foot to the other like a man not sure if he should knock or run. I let him knock twice, then opened the door slow. He smiled, forced, the kind that never reaches the eyes. Morning, he said, voice too casual, like he'd rehearsed it on the drive over. Morning, I said back. He asked if he could come in. Said he wanted to talk. I stepped aside. He walked past me, straight into the living room, eyes scanning like he expected to see a camera staring back at him. I didn't offer coffee. Didn't offer a seat. Just let him stand. A man that nervous doesn't need comfort. He needs silence. Silence forces him to fill it. Sure enough, he started talking fast. About work. About stress. About how my sister worried too much and how marriage wasn't always easy. None of it connected. Just noise to cover what he was really afraid of. Finally, he paused, licked his lips, then came out with it. You ever notice anything strange around the house? I let the question hang. Looked at him. Said nothing. Just raised an eyebrow. Slow, like I hadn't the faintest clue what he meant. He shifted again. Sweat at the collar. His hands rubbed together. Restless. I mean, sometimes the feeds glitch. Maybe interference. Maybe. I don't know. You ever get that with your Wi-Fi? I let another pause stretch. Then shrugged. Can't say I have. That was all. No accusation. No denial. Nothing for him to grab hold of. Just blank space. It unsettled him more than shouting would've. He fumbled for another excuse. Mumbled about routers, connections, random static. But the words fell apart in his mouth. He knew I wasn't buying. When he finally left, he didn't look back. Walked fast to his car, shoulders stiff, like a man walking away from a crime scene he knew was still alive behind him. I closed the door, locked it. He was getting desperate, and desperate men make mistakes. He went home straight after leaving me. Didn't stop for work. Didn't stop for errands. Straight into the driveway, car door slamming harder than it needed to. I waited half an hour, then moved, pulled out the laptop, logged into his system like it was mine. Because by now, it was. He was in the kitchen. I could see him on the feed, pacing, muttering, pulling at his hair like the answers might fall out if he yanked hard enough. He grabbed another beer from the fridge, though it wasn't even noon. Drank half in one swallow. That was the moment I slipped the new clip into place. Camera feed from the living room. His favorite angle. He expected to see the couch, the coffee table, maybe the faint reflection of his own guilty face in the glass. Instead, he saw me. Not all of me. Just my silhouette in the doorway. Still, silent, head turned slightly like I was watching him from inside his own house. 10 seconds. No more. Then the feed blinked back to normal. Couch, coffee table, nothing else. He froze. Beer bottle halfway to his mouth. Didn't move for a full minute. Just stared at the screen like it had turned into a window to another world. Then he snapped, grabbed the phone, slammed it down on the counter, picked it up again, shoved it in his pocket, walked out of the kitchen fast, breathing hard. But I wasn't worried, because wherever he went in that house, I could be there first. He didn't know it yet, but I was shaping him, steering him. Every glitch, every message, every shadow in the corner, it was pushing him exactly where I wanted him to go. And soon enough, he'd run out of corners. My sister called me that evening. She never called during the week, not unless something was wrong. Her voice was steady, but there was a tremor under it, the kind that sneaks through when you're trying hard not to admit you're worried. Is he okay? She asked. I kept my tone flat. Why? He's different, jumpy, snaps at little things. He barely looked at me at dinner yesterday, and today he just sat there, like he was somewhere else. You ever seen him like that? I thought about the pacing, the sweating, the silhouette on the feed, the way he came to me fishing for answers. Not that I've noticed, I said. She sighed. Long, heavy. Maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe it's just work, but I don't know. Something feels off. I feel like he's hiding something. She was right, but I wasn't ready for her to see the whole picture. Not yet. The trap needed time. So I told her what she needed to hear. That he was probably stressed, that he'd settle down. I said it calmly, like it was nothing, because calm has a way of cooling panic. But when I hung up, I sat there in the dark, staring at the screen, watching him again. Alone now, hunched at the kitchen table, chewing his nails down to the quick. He didn't know his wife was already seeing the cracks. He didn't know the questions were already bubbling. And that's what fear does. It doesn't stay locked inside. It leaks, first through the eyes, then the voice, then the hands, until the people closest to you can't help but notice. He was leaking fast, and I was going to make sure every drop counted. He tried to act normal the next morning. Made breakfast for her. Eggs, toast, coffee, like he'd turned into the perfect husband overnight. He smiled too much, spoke too fast, asked too many questions about her day. But normal is easy to fake. Natural isn't. She watched him over the rim of her mug. Quiet, suspicious. I could see it in her eyes through the feed. She wasn't buying what he was selling. Everything okay? She asked. He froze for half a second. Just half. But it was enough. He nodded quickly, forced the smile again. Yeah, fine. Why? She didn't answer right away. Just tilted her head, like she was listening to something he couldn't hear. Then she said softly, you've been different lately. His shoulders tightened, jaw clenched. He looked down at his plate, pushed food around without eating. Mumbled something about deadlines, pressure, too many late nights. She let it go, for now. But her eyes stayed on him longer than his on her. And he felt it. After she left for work, he slammed the dishes into the sink. Glass rattled, plate chipped. He stood there with his hands on the counter, breathing hard, like the kitchen itself had betrayed him. That was when I gave him another nudge. I cut into the bedroom feed again, just long enough for one more message. This time, no silhouette, no boots, just a clean sheet of paper taped to the dresser. Words scrawled thick and black. She sees you. 10 seconds, then gone. I pictured him pulling at his hair, spinning in circles, wondering if the walls were whispering his wife's thoughts into the cameras. Because now the trap wasn't just about him. It was about her. And in his mind, the two were about to collide. That night, the mask slipped again. She asked him a simple question. What he wanted for dinner. Nothing loaded. Nothing suspicious. Just an everyday thing. He snapped at her. Sharp. Too sharp. Why do you keep asking me things? You always ask. Can't you just leave me alone for 5 minutes? The room went silent. She froze, spatula still in her hand. He saw the hurt on her face, and instantly tried to reel it back. Reached for her arm, softening his voice. Sorry. Long day. I didn't mean it, but the damage was done. You can patch drywall after a crack, but the line is always there, waiting to split again. Later, while she showered, he stalked walked through the house, checking vents, corners, baseboards, the places only he and I knew to look. He moved like a man chasing ghosts, every step louder than the last. I slipped into the feeds while he searched, watched him rip open the bedroom vent again, eyes wild, sweat shining on his forehead. He muttered under his breath, words I couldn't catch, maybe prayers, maybe curses, and then he froze, turned slowly toward the dresser. The taped sheet of paper was gone. I'd removed it earlier. He didn't know how, or when, only that someone, had been close enough to touch his world and vanish again. He punched the wall beside the dresser, fist to plaster, skin split, blood smeared. She came out of the bathroom minutes later, wrapped in a towel, saw his hand, asked what happened. He laughed, too loud, too quick, said he'd slipped, hit the counter. She frowned, not convinced, but she let it slide. And that's how fear works. It doesn't just poison a man, it poisons the people closest to him. It twists love into doubt. It turns a home into a cage. And his cage was getting smaller every night. She showed up at my place unannounced. No call, no text, just a knock on the door late evening, her face pale under the porch light. I knew before she spoke that something had shifted. I don't know what's going on with him, she said, but it's not normal. I let her in. She sat at the table, hands wrapped around a mug she didn't drink from. She stared at it like she was afraid if she looked up, the truth might slap her in the face. He's angry all the time, she went on, short, distant, like he's living in another room I can't see. Last night he snapped at me over nothing. Tonight he barely said a word. I kept my voice flat, neutral. You think he's hiding something? Her eyes flicked up, sharp, don't you? I didn't answer right away. She searched my face, waiting. I let the silence stretch, because sometimes silence tells more than words. Finally, I said, maybe he's under pressure. Maybe it's work. Maybe it's something else. Her hands tightened on the mug. Something else. She said it like a fact, not a guess. We sat there for a long time. She didn't know I had proof. She didn't know about the cameras, or the feeds, or the messages I'd slipped into her house like blades between floorboards. But she knew enough. She knew her husband wasn't the man she thought he was. And that doubt was growing, day by day, like a crack in glass. When she finally stood to leave, she hesitated at the door. If you notice anything strange, promise you'll tell me? I nodded once. Promise. She walked away into the night, shoulders hunched against a weight she couldn't name. And I stood in the doorway watching, already planning the next move. Because if she was ready to doubt him, it meant she was ready to see the truth. And when she did, there'd be no way back. She found one by accident. Saturday morning, she was dusting in the bedroom. Ordinary chore, nothing planned. She pulled the dresser out a few inches to wipe behind it. That's when she saw the small, black dot tucked into the vent cover. At first, she thought it was dirt, but dirt doesn't shine like glass. She leaned closer, frowning, hand hovering just short of touching it. Downstairs, he heard the scrape of furniture and called up to her. His voice was tight, almost panicked. What are you doing? She froze. He was up the stairs in seconds, too fast. She straightened, stepped back, eyes flicking from him to the vent. I was just cleaning, she said carefully. He followed her gaze, saw the lens, saw her face. For one split second, all his mask slipped, raw fear in his eyes. A man caught naked in daylight. Then he laughed, forced, shook his head. Oh, that? Just an old smoke detector. I've been meaning to replace it. Don't worry about it. She didn't answer, didn't believe it. He knew she didn't. He yanked the vent cover off, ripped the camera free, and shoved it into his pocket like it had never existed. His hands shook the whole time. She watched him, silent, eyes sharp. Later, when he was out of the room, she texted me, I think he's spying on me. I need to talk. I stared at the message for a long time. She had finally seen it with her own eyes. The crack wasn't just in her trust anymore. It was wide open. And now it was time to decide how much of the truth to hand her, and how much to hold back for the moment he least expected. She came over again that night. No small talk this time. No careful half words. She walked in like the walls of her house had burned down behind her. Eyes red, shoulders tight. He said it was a smoke detector, she blurted. But it wasn't. I know it wasn't. It looked like a camera. I know what I saw. I didn't move, didn't nod, didn't give her the satisfaction of instant confirmation. Instead, I let her sit, let her shake, let her fill the silence herself. Tell me I'm wrong, she said. Please, tell me I'm crazy. She wasn't crazy. She'd been living in his maze, and now she'd found the first string of the trap. She just didn't know how deep it went. I leaned back, folded my arms. What do you think it was? She swallowed, looked away. A camera, hidden, watching me, watching us. I let the words hang, heavy, irrefutable. Then I said, if it was, what would you do? Her head snapped back toward me. What kind of question is that? A real one. Because if you're right, you've been living with someone you don't know. And if you're ready to face that, there's no going back. She went pale. The kind of pale you get when a truth finally lands and you realize the world you've been living in isn't real. Are there more? She asked, voice trembling. I didn't lie, but I didn't tell it all, either. I kept it tight, clean. Maybe, I can check, if you want. She nodded too fast, almost desperate. That was enough, for now. I didn't tell her I'd already mapped every lens, every wire, every feed. I didn't tell her I was the ghost in his system, pulling strings he couldn't see. Because timing mattered. If she knew everything now, the trap would spring too soon. Better to let her walk back into that house with questions burning. Better to let her watch him squirm under her eyes. And when the time came, I'd give her the whole truth. Not just in words, but in pictures, in sound, in his own voice and his own hidden recordings. A live feed of guilt, one he couldn't delete. She didn't wait long. That night, she brought it up, not carefully, not in passing. She hit him straight in the middle of dinner, like a hammer dropped on glass. What was that thing in the vent? She asked. He froze with his fork halfway to his mouth, blinked once, twice, too slow, too obvious, then forced a laugh. I told you, old detector, just junk. She shook her head. No, it wasn't. He tried to hold her gaze, but couldn't. Looked down instead, pushed food around his plate like he could rearrange his lies into something believable. You don't trust me? He said finally, voice low. Dangerous. Should I? She fired back. Silence stretched across the table, heavy, long. She wasn't backing down this time, and he didn't have an answer. He stood up too fast, chair scraping across the floor, took his plate to the sink, slammed it down harder than necessary, said he was tired, going to bed. She sat there alone, staring at the empty chair, fingers tight around her wine glass. I watched it all through the feed, every glance, every twitch. She was closing in on the truth, and he was running out of places to hide. But the best part? He knew someone was watching. He just didn't know how much I'd already shown her, and that not knowing was eating him alive. The crack widened the next day. She asked him again, this time in the kitchen, morning light spilling through the blinds. Same question, same calm voice. Why was there a camera in the vent? He lost it, not with fists, not yet, but with words sharp enough to cut. He slammed the counter with his palm, the sound echoing through the house like a gunshot. Stop asking me that, he shouted. You don't know what you're talking about. You're imagining things, always imagining things. She stepped back, shocked, hurt, but she didn't cower. She stood her ground, arms folded tight. I'm not imagining anything, she said. Her voice was steady, too steady. I saw it. I touched it, and I want to know why I was there. His face went red. He paced the kitchen like a cornered animal, muttering under his breath. Something about her snooping. Something about trust. Words spilling out without shape or sense. Then he stopped, looked at her with a smile that didn't belong on his face. Cold, thin. You don't want to know the answers, he said softly. She shivered, not from the chill in the room, but from the truth leaking through his words. I watched it all, every second, my hands tight on the arm of the chair, jaw clenched. Because a man on the edge is predictable. He'll always tip one way or the other, toward confession or toward violence. And by the look in his eyes, he wasn't leaning toward confession. That night the air in the house was heavy. She tried to keep her distance, moving quietly from room to room, careful not to provoke him. But silence isn't safety. Silence just gives fear more space to grow. He found her in the hallway, blocked her path with his body. Close, too close. You think I don't notice? He said. His voice was low, almost calm, but his hand pressed against the wall beside her, caging her in. The way you look at me, the questions, the doubt. You think I don't see it? Her chin lifted, brave, defiant, but her breathing quickened. I just want to know the truth, she said. He leaned in, so close she could smell the beer on his breath. His eyes burned with something twisted, anger, fear, desperation all tangled together. You don't need to know everything, he hissed. His hand moved, not to hit her, not yet, but to grab her wrist, hard enough to leave a mark if he held it longer. She flinched, tried to pull away. He didn't let go. That's when I stepped in. I cut the feed from the hallway camera and replaced it with a new one. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, still gripping her wrist, glanced at the screen. The image froze him. It wasn't her. It wasn't the hallway. It was me, sitting in his chair, looking straight into the lens. A message scrawled across the screen in thick black letters. Let her go. His hand dropped instantly. The phone shook in his grip. He stared at it, breathing hard, like the screen had just whispered his name in the dark. She pulled back, rubbing her wrist, confusion in her eyes. She didn't know what he'd seen, but she knew the grip was broken. He shoved the phone into his pocket and stormed past her without a word. I sat back in my own chair, watching. The line had been crossed, and soon, there'd be no way back for him. By morning, the shift was clear. The fear was still there, but now it had teeth. He wasn't just pacing the house or snapping at her. He was planning. I watched him from the feed as he pulled out a notepad, scribbled numbers, drew crude diagrams of the house. He checked the doors, the windows, the router. Every move was frantic, disorganized, like a man trying to build a fortress from sandbags while the flood was already rising. At one point he said my name, quiet, under his breath, testing the air, like he thought maybe I was listening through the walls. He was right. Later, he left the house, drove past my place twice, slow, staring. He didn't stop, but the message was clear. He knew where to point his fear now. I didn't move, didn't blink, just watched from the window as his car rolled by, once, then again. He wanted to spook me. He wanted me to know he knew. But paranoia isn't power. It's weakness, stretched thin across a man who can't hold it in. When he got home, she asked where he'd been. He lied, said errands, said traffic. She didn't push, but her eyes followed him all the way up the stairs. And me? I slipped another message into his feed that night. Short, direct. I'm not hiding. He stared at it for a long time, face pale, lips tight, hands shaking around the phone. Because now the game wasn't just in his house. It was between us, and only one of us was playing it clean. He couldn't sit still anymore. The next day he parked 2 streets over from my place, sat in his car with the engine running, eyes fixed on my front door. I watched him through the blinds, watched him check his watch, check his mirrors, check the street. A man trying to convince himself he had a plan. But his hands betrayed him, shaking, always shaking. After 20 minutes, he finally moved, got out of the car, walked slow, too slow, like he wanted to look casual, but every step screamed guilt. He made it up the path, stood at my door, looked around once, twice, then tried the handle. Locked, of course. He knocked, soft, testing. I didn't answer. He knocked harder, waited, then harder again, fist thudding against the wood like he could beat his way through. Still I didn't answer. Finally he bent low, peered through the side window. His eyes swept the room, searching, hunting, but all he saw was emptiness, silence, nothing for him to grab onto. He cursed under his breath, sharp and ugly, then stormed back down the steps, nearly tripping, walked fast to his car, slammed the door, peeled away. I smiled, because in his mind, he'd made a move, taken action, but in reality, he'd just confirmed the truth. He was watching me now as much as I was watching him, and that meant I owned him. That night, I sent him another message, not through his phone this time, through the living room feed, bold across the wall. I saw you. When he read it, he froze, stared at the screen like it had called him by name, because it had. By now he was splitting in two. Half his anger was aimed at me, the ghost he couldn't see. The other half fell on her, because she was there, in reach, and he couldn't keep the storm bottled anymore. Dinner started quiet, too quiet. She cooked. He sat at the table, phone on the wood like a loaded weapon. His eyes never left it. She set the plates down, tried small talk, asked about his day. He didn't answer, just kept staring at the phone. Finally she said, "Are you going to keep ignoring me?" His head snapped up, eyes wild, rimmed red. Maybe I should. Maybe I should ignore you the way you ignore me. She blinked, shocked. What are you talking about? You've been watching me, judging me, whispering. I see it. Don't think I don't. Her mouth fell open. Whispering? To who? He stood so fast the chair toppled back, pointed a finger at her, sharp as a knife. Don't play dumb. You know something. You've been talking to him, haven't you? Her voice trembled but held steady. Who? He didn't answer. Couldn't. Just paced the kitchen like an animal trapped in a cage too small. His hands opened and closed at his sides. She pressed her back to the counter, keeping distance, her eyes locked on him. I watched from the feed, every second, ready to cut in if he made the wrong move. But he didn't strike. Not yet. He slammed a fist against the wall instead, hard enough to rattle the frame. She flinched, but she didn't run. She stood her ground, staring at him like she was finally seeing the stranger in front of her. And maybe that scared him more than anything else. He showed up again, middle of the night this time, car rolling slow down my street, headlights cutting the dark. He parked outside my place, engine idling, window down. I killed my lights, sat in the dark, watching from behind the curtain. He stayed there 10 minutes, staring at my door, my windows, like he could see through the walls if he just glared hard enough. Finally, he got out, walked up the path. This time he didn't knock. He spoke. I know it's you, he said, voice low, aimed at the door. You think you're clever. You think you can mess with me? I see you. I know what you're doing. I didn't answer, didn't move. He stepped closer, hand flat against the wood. You don't scare me. You hear me? You don't scare me. But his voice cracked on the last word, just a fraction, but enough to betray him. He stood there another minute, chest heaving, then pulled something from his pocket, pressed it against the door, a folded note. Then he left, back down the path, into the car, engine roaring into the night. I waited until he was gone, then opened the door, picked up the note. 4 words scrawled in jagged ink. Stay out of IT. I smiled, because a man who writes warnings is already finished. Warnings are fear on paper. Warnings are surrender. And by the time time I was done, he'd learn the hard way. This wasn't just about me being in it. It was about me running it. I didn't wait long. The next morning, he stumbled through the kitchen like a man running on fumes. Bloodshot eyes, unshaven, shirt buttoned wrong. My sister asked if he was sick. He mumbled something about sleep, poured coffee with shaking hands. I slipped in then, dropped the message into his phone feed while the mug was still halfway to his lips. The kitchen camera flickered. His screen went black. Then a new clip appeared. Not boots, not a silhouette. This time it was him, caught from the vent above, sitting at the table the night before, muttering at the empty air, pressing that note against my door. His own paranoia looped back at him like a mirror. 10 seconds, then gone. The coffee mug slipped in his hand, spilled across the counter. My sister rushed over with a towel, startled, but he didn't notice her, didn't move, just stared at the phone like it had reached inside his skull and pulled out the thought he feared most, that I had everything. She put a hand on his arm. He flinched so violently she dropped the towel. Are you okay? She whispered. He forced a smile, too wide, too fast. Fine, just fine. But his hand trembled so badly he had to set the mug down before it shattered. Upstairs later, he locked the bathroom door and sat on the floor with the phone in his hands. I watched from the hallway feed as he scrolled back and forth, searching, desperate to find proof that the clip wasn't real. But it was, because it was his. Every word, every movement, every ounce of guilt. And now he knew it. By evening, the cracks were wide open. She'd been watching him all day, jumping at noises, checking his phone every 5 minutes, locking doors that had never been locked before. By dinner time, she couldn't take it anymore. She cornered him in the living room, arms folded, voice steady. I want the truth, she said. He tried the smile again, that plastic mask he'd been clinging to for weeks. About what? About the camera. About why you've been acting like a stranger. About why you won't look me in the eye. He shifted on the couch, jaw tight. You're imagining things. No, she said flatly. I saw it. I touched it. And you ripped it out of the wall like you were scared I'd ask questions. He opened his mouth, closed it, looked away. She pressed harder. Are there more? His head snapped back, eyes blazing. Who told you that? The words hung in the air like smoke. Too fast, too sharp. A slip he couldn't take back. Her face went pale. So there are more. He stood, looming over her now, anger boiling, hands balled into fists at his sides. You don't understand. She didn't flinch. Then explain it to me. But he didn't. He couldn't. He just stormed out, footsteps pounding up the stairs, the bedroom door slamming hard enough to rattle the frames. She stood there in the silence, chest heaving, tears stinging her eyes. And I watched it all. The house wasn't a home anymore. It was a crime scene waiting for its headline. And when the truth finally broke open, there'd be no pretending it was anything less. He didn't come down for hours. The house stayed quiet, but not safe. My sister curled up on the couch, hugging her knees, eyes locked on the stairs like she expected him to come back down with an answer. Or a fist. Upstairs, I watched him through the bedroom feed. He wasn't pacing anymore. He was planning. Pulled open drawers, tossed clothes aside, dug through the closet until he found a shoebox buried under old coats. Inside, a bottle of whiskey, half gone, a pocket knife, sharp and polished, and a notepad filled with angry scribbles, dark lines carved so deep they nearly tore the paper. He sat on the bed with the bottle in one hand and the knife in the other, drank, stared at the blade, drank again. The phone buzzed on the nightstand. He grabbed it, opened the feed, scanned every room. His eyes darted like a hunted animal's. He was searching for me, for her, for anyone who could see what he was about to do. But I was already there, watching, recording, waiting. He set the knife down and pulled the notepad closer, scribbled furiously, words spilling like blood. They're against me. They're both against me. I have to stop this. I have to take control. Downstairs, she heard the thud of his chair scraping the floor. She stood slowly, unease etched on her face, took one step toward the stairs, then stopped. Her instincts told her the truth. The man upstairs wasn't the man she married. Not anymore. And soon, he wouldn't just be dangerous to her trust. He'd be dangerous to her life. The breaking point came after midnight. She was asleep on the couch, lights still on, blanket pulled tight around her shoulders. The sound of the bedroom door creaking open upstairs pulled her half awake. He came down slow, one hand on the rail, the other clenched around the knife. I saw it through the hallway feed. His face pale, jaw clenched, eyes dead, not drunk enough to stumble, sober enough to mean it. He paused at the bottom step, staring at her, just staring, like he was weighing it in his head. Her eyes opened fully. She froze, didn't scream, didn't move, just whispered his name once. He stepped closer, knife glinting in the low light. That was my cue. I cut the living room feed to black, replaced it with the image I'd been saving. Not boots, not silhouettes, not paper signs. This time it was a full recording. Him in the bedroom earlier, knife in one hand, bottle in the other, writing his paranoid manifesto about how they're against me. His own handwriting, his own voice muttering the words. The feed played on his phone, loud, clear. His head jerked toward the screen. His hand trembled around the blade. She saw it too, sat up, eyes wide. What is that? She whispered. The phone slipped from his grip, hit the floor. The clip kept rolling. His face stared back at him from the night before, hunched and broken, ranting about control. He looked at her then, for the first time with nothing to hide behind. Just guilt, just fear. And for a second, the knife dipped. I leaned forward in my chair, watching, because the trap was sprung. But the collapse wasn't complete yet. That would come next. The phone lit up again before he could pick it off the floor. Not just one clip this time. All of them, one after another. The kitchen camera showing the hidden lens he installed. The hallway feed with my boots. The dresser note. She sees you. His late night mutterings about me. And finally, the bedroom recording. Him clutching the knife, scribbling in the notebook. They're against me. I have to stop this. Each clip bled into the next. No pause. No mercy. He stood there, rooted to the floor, knife hanging limp at his side. His face drained of color as if the truth was being pulled out of him by force. She turned to him slowly. Her voice cracked, but her words were clear. You did this? All of this? He stammered, tried to shape denials, but the evidence drowned him out. His own voice was on the feed, echoing through the room like a confession carved into stone. It's not what it looks like. It's exactly what it looks like, she said, louder now. Her hands trembled, but her eyes burned. You spied on me. On us. You. He stepped toward her, desperate, knife still in his hand, but not raised. She recoiled anyway. The space between them was no longer a marriage. It was a battlefield. I watched from the feed, calm, steady. Every word, every second was being recorded. Not just for him. Not just for her. For anyone who would need proof when this was over. Because this was the live feed I'd promised him. His guilt, his sickness, his downfall, all playing out in real time. And there was no button he could press to stop it. The knife clattered to the floor first. He dropped it like it burned him. His hands went to his face, clawing at his skin as the feed rolled on. His own voice filled the room, confession after confession, until the walls themselves seemed to echo his guilt. She backed away, trembling but steady enough to keep her eyes on him. No more denial. No more doubt. It's over, she whispered. He stumbled, grabbed the table, knocked a chair aside. For a second, I thought he might charge, but there was nothing left in him. He was already hollow. He bolted for the door instead, out into the night, barefoot, shirt half open, running nowhere, chased by nothing but the truth he couldn't outrun. The phone lay on the floor, still playing the feed. She stared at it, at the recordings, at the reality she hadn't wanted to believe but couldn't deny anymore. Her hands shook as she picked it up. She looked around the room, scanning the corners, the shadows. Then she spoke. Was it you? I didn't answer out loud, but the next message slid across the screen, clean and simple. You're safe now. She read it twice. Tears filled her eyes. Relief, grief, both at once. She sank into the chair, clutching the phone to her chest. Outside, the night was quiet again. His footsteps already fading. And inside, the cameras stayed dark because the live feed was finished. And some stories don't need sequels.